Today, we are going to be talking about the build diversity dilemma in Division 2. This is a video that is inspired by many content creators out there covering Division 2, including Gamey Daddy, Born to Game, and many others. And I also wanted to give my own take on this, the underlying problem, the issues, and things that the developers can do to improve the game experience. Before the Warlords update, the game was in a state where almost every single person you see was running a hybrid build, aka the one-man army. You can tank, you can heal, and you can do DPS all by yourself. Being that the Division franchise is quote-unquote a MMORPG shooter, there were some RPG elements missing in the game, and I give props to the developers here as they were hoping to create a playing space where roles are now more important than ever, as you would see in other RPGs out there. You have your healers, you have your tanks, your paladins, your CC, support, and so on. That is what we have in the current title update, even though it could be better. There are some great things about this, and I commend the developers for this once again, and there are some things that could really use some work, hence why the anticipated role-playing strategy failed just 1 week into the new update. So let's begin. First, giving credit where credit is due. If we negate the glitches and the bugs that we have in the game right now, builds are more powerful than before, and this is due to the reason that you can now focus and specialize on certain builds that you've never done before. Before this, builds are good, but even if you try to build for healers, there was still a little bit of a hiccup here and there. But now there are so many ways that you could build a healer, and so many talents that will work for you and your team. There are even exotics that makes your life easier. And the same thing goes for support, CC, your DPS, and it is just phenomenal the amount of things that you can create in this update. The problem here is that while Division agents took 10 steps further in the Warlords update, the enemy AI took a leap several miles ahead of us. Not only did they get tankier beyond measure, their damage output was also astronomical, and their mechanics was out of this world. I might even say broken at times. The idea is to create challenge for players and not just create something you can walk over, and for this, the idea was great. The execution was just subpar, and for this reason, role-playing phenomenon collapsed. When we're looking at abilities and player NPC interaction, there are some things that is going on with weapons as well, but we'll talk about that as we go on through the video. In Division 2 right now, only two things matter: skill builds with CC subsection and an all-out DPS. The enemies deal more damage that regardless of your healing builds or your tanky builds, you will get melted even if you have 2 million armor. Your Vanguard and Protection can only work for a split second, and in certain situations, enemies will still kill you before you can even activate or get a buff. Hence why tardigrade exotic piece became useful in some activities such as raids and challenging difficulty. But when you're looking at heroics and legendary, they're almost useless. As players within the community, the answer was to kill them before they kill you, because that was the only logical thing to do. So a lot of us decided to go all out DPS and pair it up with some CC builds. Because you cannot tank enemies in this game, even the red bars are a lot difficult to handle. League activities came out, and along with everything that Massive released, the game became more of a DPS and CC minefield. Nothing else mattered, and because a lot of these objectives are almost unattainable, it further pushes the role-playing aspect of the game backwards. And if you want to finish the trials in time, you need to play DPS. So in the way it is right now, DPS takes the #1 spot in the game, CC takes #2 with skills, and everything else is just utter useless in most situations. And with enough DPS, you don't even need crowd control, and that is what we have right now. To fix this, the developers have been slightly tuning the enemies in every single update, but it seems that by the time they finally get it right, we will be a year or 2 years down the line. We might even be waiting for the next Division game, and I think they need to move a little bit faster. First things first, the enemy's greatest assets is their skills and technology. Give them a longer cooldown duration. Enemy accuracy is too spot on if you're looking at things the way they are. There is no way a red bar enemy should be able to get 100% accuracy while blind firing from cover. For lore reasons in the Division franchise or the game, Division agents should be better skilled than a red bar enemy, so their accuracy and skill efficiency needs to be reduced by 90% because at the end of the day, they are low level thugs, and their damage is also something that has to be tuned down. As for elites and bosses, they are high ranked for a reason, and their damage output should stay the same. Introduce a solid armor gating mechanic for all players and strengthen the gating mechanic for players who decide to play tank or healer builds. This will mean that while you can rely on Vanguard and Protector and Unbreakable, there is at least 1 second of invulnerability so that enemies can't just melt you with a single shot. And give that invulnerability a rule that says only a boss can bypass this 1 second immunity buff. Now, as for other skill builds, increase the base duration of most of them so that there is some viability in running anything else other than just mortar and blind or foams. Give healing skills some level of invulnerability as well, so enemies can't just destroy your revive hive, as I often see in most missions. More on the player side of things. Almost every exotic weapon from the previous updates are outclassed by the new ones, and that is one of the major issues right now. As far as weapon type goes, only 3 of them matters, and that is rifles like the M1A, LMGs, and some AR. There are some talks about nerfing certain ones, but other weapon types are still useless and cannot compete unless there is a major change. Starting with SMGs. In a game where close and personal approach will get you killed, SMGs should be able to deal more damage if you're bold enough to get in the face of an enemy. As of this moment, SMGs are clearly inconsistent and are easily outclassed by any AR in the game. To compensate for this lack of range, stability, and accuracy, SMGs need a little bit of a damage buff. And as far as exotic weapons go, things such as the chameleon should have gotten some changes in this new update. It needs a damage boost as well, or at least maybe a magazine change. To really get a benefit from using the chameleon, you need to have reloaded up to 3 times, and the way the enemy armor and health scales in this game, the weapon is useless compared to its non-exotic counterparts. The same thing can also be said for weapons such as the Chatterbox and Lady Death. The designation exotics should mean more than just color and name. They need some huge improvements as well, so SMGs and some ARs need to be brought up to par. If we ever want a weapon diversity in the game, all weapons need to be viable for one thing or the other. Now, in case you guys noticed, I haven't asked for an outright nerf to enemy armor or enemy damage. Well, that is because we don't want to take away the need for a DPS in the game either. Just because we want to make other roles viable doesn't mean we should make things useless. We also don't want to recreate the old meta of jack of all trades where everyone can run anything and still outclass every single enemy. This way, we won't alienate other builds, and you can also create a way for a diverse RPG experience. Now, as far as PvP is concerned, that will be in another video, but the PvP experience in Sandbox need to be separated from PvE. Now, to end it all, I will say that the devs have a great idea with this new system, they just had a very poor execution, and when they make these changes to enemies, they need to take giant steps to do it. You can't just take your time when it comes to initiating changes. Anyways, that is going to be my thoughts on the build diversity dilemma, what the devs have to do about this, how they can improve the gameplay experience. I don't know if we should call this game a power fantasy in the making, but I know that a lot of players would like to enjoy and feel powerful in the game. Feel free to share your own thoughts about this down below in the comment section. As always, it's DA signing out. I'll see you guys in the next one.